And American judges are once again reviewing Donald Trump's actions on immigration and travel. While a federal court rejected his rollback of protections for undocumented people, those brought to the U.S. as children, the Supreme Court is showing signs it might uphold his latest version of the travel ban.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! I know our energy to fight. We can't catch America on this historic day.
Demonstrators against the ban chanted outside the high court. Inside, the state of Hawaii was challenging the Trump administration. Its current rule bans people from Iran, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Venezuela, and North Korea. Chad was on that list when it first came out last fall, but it has since been removed. Now, critics of the ban say it amounts to religious discrimination, especially in the context of the president's own statements.
Today, the Supreme Court decided to hear a fundamental question about our times, which is, can we have a president that says, in the terms he has, things like a complete and total shutdown of Muslim immigration should happen in our United States? The Supreme Court had a vigorous argument on that today, and we look very forward to the court's resolution of this important and historic case.
Anilu Chadwick is an immigration attorney, and she's been following this case very, very closely. So the Supreme Court is reviewing this. What's at stake here, Anilu?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Duarte. What's at stake is whether or not we're going to continue to be a nation that's accepting of refugees and individuals from other countries. Right now, families are being separated unjustly, having processes delayed after they've been extremely vetted, in the president's own words, for a process that takes over 2 years. At this time, there's uncertainty whether they'll be able to enter the United States, and specifically, this is affecting refugees, as it has diminished the numbers of individuals who are eligible to enter the United States and partake in refugee resettlement.
So do you believe that this ban is unconstitutional?
Well, that's $1 million question, and one that is highly contested, and we will get a decision at the end of June. At this time, there's a lot of factors to take into consideration, whether in fact it is running afoul of the Establishment Clause, whether the president's own words can be taken into consideration to really draw out the intent of why this is happening. We've seen in the various iterations of the travel ban since it was first issued in January that it has changed and that it has tried to conform with the law. But at the end of the day, this nation was founded on the principle of being inclusive, of allowing immigrants and refugees into our country and providing that hope, and now that's being challenged.
So there are a lot of reports right now that the Supreme Court is leaning in a particular direction. Do we know where that's coming from? Is there any truth to that? What are you hearing?
Well, based on the oral arguments presented today, which for the first time since the same-sex arguments were presented in 2015, were released the same day, and it seems that there is going to be a split court along the liberals and conservative justices. At this time, we remain optimistic that a lot of factors will be taken into consideration, especially the words it's mentioned during the campaign.
But explain that to me one more time, because I sort of missed that point. So based on what do we believe that the Supreme Court may be leaning in a particular direction?
Based on the questions issued by the justices, a certain side of the justices remained very conservative and saved their questions for the challengers of the travel ban.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
And there was some skepticism from Justice Kagan as well, trying to see whether we can question the president's authority, as this is within his purview, and regulating who can enter the United States falls squarely on the executive branch. Yet Justice Sotomayor contended that this was an issue squarely falling upon Congress. So that's going to be a consideration that the justices are going to have to address, and we eagerly await the decision. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait until the end of June.
There are a lot of people who look at this through the lens of race, and they say that this may be a policy designed to keep Muslims out. Is there any truth to that? Do you believe that?
Well, there are a lot of factors to take into consideration, but given the countries that were targeted, given the rhetoric that was used to justify and defend this during the campaign, there is some merit to that. As I mentioned, the different iterations tried to change the focus of that, and that's something that the Solicitor General mentioned during his arguments, that if this was in fact intended to be a Muslim ban, it's quite weak. But however, we have to look at the end of the day, certain countries are being targeted, and the purpose behind this is just to close the doors on the United States.